It's lesson 8, part 2, and we're going to continue on adding authentication to our Barry Eats site. So we've been able to register user accounts, and now we want users to be able to log in. So again, instead of creating that form, you can just go on to Blackboard right below the register form. Here's the login form. I'm going to go ahead, grab that code for the login page. And we'll make a new PHP file called login. So you can delete the HTML template code that's there, just paste in. So now we've got a pretty simple login form. Looks like this. Just go ahead and grab the code, create a login.php, paste it all in. There's your form. We'll have to make a couple small changes to this later, but for now it's mostly functional. If I try to log in right now, we get a 404. So notice the URL it's calling the page called validate, which we have not built yet. So we can actually use PHP Storm to generate that file for us. So if I go into my code, if I just double click here and click Alt and Enter, it'll give me a prompt. Do I want to create PHP Storm to create this file? So I'll just say yes. Or I could create it manually, doesn't matter. This is just a bit of a shortcut. I'll just click on create file. Again, I'm going to delete the code that's here. Invalidate. So the code for this file is on Blackboard, but it's not complete. So in your lesson 8 folder, if you scroll up, there's a Word document here. It's actually right underneath the session versus cookies called Authentication in Class Notes. So click on this and download the Word document. Okay, when you click on this link here that says Authentication in Class Notes, it's going to open up this file. And we're actually going to skip over the first page of the Word document. So here is the code that we need on the validate page, except the line in red, obviously, will need your database credentials. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. You can talk to people next to you. You can do this on your own. The code, you notice it's color coded. So each block of color is a different section, but the code is all out of sequence. So I'm going to take a few minutes and see if you can put all of this code in order. We'll review it together, and then when we think we have it all in the right order, we'll copy and paste that, and this will be the bulk of what we need on our validate page. Not quite entirely, but close. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. I'm going to just go set up our next activity while we do this. Okay? You can do this on your own, or you can talk to someone next to you. So just drag and drop the different colored sections around until you think all this code is in the right place. So this is the page we're going to use to check if the username and password entered matches a user in our database. You think you have it finished? Compare with someone else. Done. I'll give you one more minute and then we'll see if we can put it together in the right order. Anybody want to suggest which color should be first? So which section of code based on the color should come first? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let's get the variable, get the two form inputs and put them in variables. So we'll put those first. Oops. Okay, what color would be second? Okay, so we can connect to the database, yeah. Right. Okay, well, oops. So we'll connect and we'll set up our query. What color would be next? Yeah, so the gray would be next. Okay, once we've set up our query, we're going to create the command, find the parameter. Now notice, okay, so what color would be next? So we have to run the query and fetch the result. Now notice when we run the query, we're actually only passing in the username. Notice we don't send in the password. So now actually we have it in the right order. So how come if we look at this code, we'll move this into our PHP storm in a minute. So why do we only pass in the username? And then what's happening here in the purple section? Right, so we're actually first selecting only the user based on the username only. If we find that user, we then want to take the password they typed in the login box and we call password verify. So that compares the password they entered with the password that's in the database. So it doesn't actually check the username and password at the same time. First, it just goes and finds a matching user. And once it finds the matching user, it will check if the passwords are the same. So we still don't know, we never know the original password, right? We never know the password is this. We just know that if we type this password and hash it, is it equal to this value in the database? So if they're equal, if they're not equal, we'll give the user a message that the login is invalid. We'll actually maybe change this rather than printing it here. We'll take them back to the login page with a message that we can print right above the login screen would be better. Otherwise, well, then we'll do something else. If the login is successful, we'll have to do these other things. So let's go ahead and grab all that code. We'll copy it. And let's paste it in here. We don't really need any HTML because this will be an invisible page. If the login is no good, we want to take them back to login. If the login is good, we want to take them off to the restaurant page. So I'm actually just going to modify this. We're going to redirect the user back to the login page, but we're going to add a parameter onto that URL that says invalid is true. So on our login page, we can check for this. And if invalid is true, if we have that parameter, we can display an invalid message in red at the top of our form, right? That's what a user would expect to see. Not that they're on a separate page, but they're right back on the login page with an error message. So also make sure on line 5 here, let's make sure we put in the proper, make sure you put in your proper credentials. And then on our login page, let's write a little if statement at the top that checks for a get variable called invalid. And if we find that, we want to print a message in red above our form. So right now on login above our form, you can say F. We're going to check our get for a variable called invalid. If that value is set, so that's the opposite of the empty function. Or we could say not empty, be the same. If the value is set, we want to print message. We'll print it in red. So this will print a bold white text or red text on a red background message above our form if we have an invalid parameter. So we can just try this out for a minute. So if I go back to login and put in an invalid login, because invalid is true as in the URL, we get this red message showing up. If I turn it off and just go there directly. The other thing we could do is we could print maybe a blue alert, in this case with some instructions, please log in. And if it's invalid and comes back, that blue will change to red and the message will change. So I'll just put an else statement here. If we don't have an invalid message, it will show a blue alert at the top asking them to log in. And if they give us a bad login, it will change that to red and change the message inside of that alert. And now it should look like this. So this is what it looks like normally. And it will turn it to red if it's invalid. So we'll always show one of these two divs. Most of the time we'll show the blue one with asking them to log in, and we'll show the red one if we get an error. We're properly dealing with a valid login, an invalid login. And if I put in a credential that doesn't exist, it takes me back to login screen and I'm getting an error in red. So that's good. So everything we have here so far on validate is correct. Except now we have this section, if the login is valid, right now nothing happens. So if I put in a proper login, I'm just going to get a blank screen, right? Nothing's actually happening here. So remember, this is what we want to have. So we've taken care of this scenario. User enters username and password, login's not correct. We're showing them an error and we're bringing them back to the login page to try again. So that part of our workflow is good. We still haven't done this part though. Right now, nothing happens. They're giving them a blank screen. We know who they are on validate, but right now, as soon as we leave, we've lost who they are. So we need to use the session to store who they are, and then we want to take them to the restaurant page. So here's what we need here. There are actually 3 lines of code. Let's see, how many of us? I think there's, how many people are 5, 7, and 7, 14. Okay. So how about you 3 can work together, you 4 can work together. And I'll ask maybe Jill, do you want to work with Sihi and, sorry, your name again is Rupinder. I was so close to remembering everybody's name today. Sorry, Rupinder. I promise I'll have your name next week. Okay, so Jill, Rupinder and C, the three of you can work together. So and you guys will need to move and sit together. Okay, so either you guys come here or you guys go there. Here's what we're going to do. And I'm going to stop the video stream for this. The 3 missing lines of code are taped on the wall outside the classroom. Okay, so here's how you're going to finish your validate page. 1 person at a time from each group. So Yash, if you're first, you're going to go outside. You can't take your phone. You're going to read the line, one of the 3 lines, and remember it. You're going to come back in. You're going to tell Bikramjit, Nihar, and Harsh what was in there. And one of you 3 guys are going to type it into, okay, when Yash comes back, then Bikramjit, you can learn one of the other lines. Come back, tell your team. So the 3 lines go in here where my cursor is flashing, but you also have to figure out what do those lines of code do and what order should they be in. Okay, so only 1 person from each team is out at a time. And if you go out and learn a line, you can't type it. You have to tell your team how to correctly type it into the file. Okay, the first team that gets all 3 lines of code right, perfectly correct, and in the right order, I will buy you guys a treat and bring a treat to class for you next week, some Timbits or cookies or something. Okay, does everybody understand what to do? So one at a time, you go learn a line, tell your teammates type it, and then they go out and learn another line. Okay, and then when we're done, we should have a working save page. This might be a little more fun than me just showing you the code. Okay, so you guys can go ahead. I'm going to stop the stream because this is going to take a little while. I'll start a new video stream when we're done. Okay, go ahead. One at a time from each group.